Welcome to another video. In this video, I want to make our app international. What I mean by that, we'll start by designing our custom language switcher. So first, we'll design it in Figma. Later on, we will create our custom atomic component in Angular. And at the end, we plug in library, and I will show you how to configure it and switch between languages. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. This is my personal blog, and here I want to create language switcher. So I want to separate this section here and make a select where you can just pick a different language. This is our language switcher. Nothing sophisticated, but should be just enough to demonstrate you how to switch between languages. Let's continue our work. Alright, so let's begin with creating our atomic component. And to do so, I need to open my terminal and use my magic command, which comes from Angular CLI, which is ng generate component. And I will call it select. Let's press enter. And our newly created component is ready to fill up. So to do fully customize select, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to use HTML tags. Instead, what I'm going to do is to customize it perfectly the way I want it. So I'm going to place just divs. So then I can modify it, extend it the way I want, and so on and so forth. So let's begin with our select container. So this is where we will contain our like this input select that you're clicking and the list. All right, so after the container, we have the select. And what we have here, so we have class select, and here we have the variable that we set this class opened or not. What it's changing is it will add some effects, but I will show it later on. And here on the click, we're showing list or closing list. And here is our selected variable. So what we have here as well is our select option. And from the select option, it's a basically object, so we place some keys, and based on those keys, we're getting the value. And in this place, we have label, tag, or value. So it depends what we want to show. All right, moving forward, we have our list, and here we put some structural directive, which is our show list and Boolean value, and we call it select list. So and by the way, why we need a container for it? Why we can't place it outside of it? Where we can, but we need some relative value that we can place this show list. And we have to place it absolutely, because it has to be outside of our container, right? Okay. We placed here ng container, so it's like a placeholder that is not creating HTML element. It's not adding it to the DOM. And we do this because we can only have one structural directive assigned to one element. So here there will be our options. We'll iterate through options. And first will be our option container. So here again, we're assigning some class dynamically based on this, if it's selected or not, and we will place some shadow or something. Here we have our handler for clicking on the options to select, but I will show it later on. And the first thing is our tag. just because on our design we have first like a 2 letters, like a tag of the language we want to place, and later we have the name of the language. So first let's place our tag, and it will be also conditional. If it contains, then we'll place it, and it's not going to show up. The DOM. Another one is a label, and the label is the language itself, and it's also will have some styling here based on its if it's selected or not, and in this case will be bold. And the last thing what we want on our list is this line that will separate different options. And this line I called a splitter. And here we have a little complex logic. Let's say if the value is different than the last value from the list, then it's not going to show up. So we don't want the last line to be underlined, right? Here we have our component class. So what we're going to do here, let's begin with our variable boolean that will change accordingly to if we want to show list or not show. That's pretty straightforward. Here we have the bunch of inputs. So first we have inputs options. And the option I created that special interface to package all the variable that I want, all the keys that I wanted to have included, to basically have all the types that's supposed to be to package in this one interface. So I created this select model. It's pretty basic, just label, value, and optional tag. All right, and here we have selected options, and you can pass it as an input. And this sign is to let the compiler that it must be assigned options, as you can see here, no initializer. So either I can initialize this sign to let the compiler knows. So here we have disabled and show selected. What I mean by show selected is what we're going to show over here. Show selected, and there are different types, label, tag, and value that is included in our interface. Moving on, here our output, because we need to handle our changing value. So we create event emitter, and the type that we want to pass is our select option that I created previously. Another options is we want to handle when user will click outside of our box, and to do so we need host listener, and through host listener we can listen to mouse down event on documents, and here we pass the event to our handler. So this is our global click, and through our global click first we can get element reference, that is our created element. We can get our native element, the whole HTML structure, and we can check if it contains our event target. And if it doesn't, it means it was clicked outside of our element. All right, but we don't have our reference. So to get our reference, we need to place it in our constructor, inject it. Here we have our element reference, and through this element reference, we can get reference to our select component. All right, moving on. Let's code our handler on the click. So first, obviously, we assign it to the selected. We emit value outside through our output event emitter. And next, we want the list to be closed, basically, as it's default in every other HTML element. Let's go to our styling. This is our styling component, SCSS. And what we begin with is our importing our variables that were mentioned in previous video. Here we have the host element. This is not mandatory. If you want to style your host element that is above everything what you have here in your template, then you can use this. I just use it because I prefer to put it inside there, but it's not mandatory because the encapsulation will do its job anyway. So let's begin with our select element, which is our element that is visible on the website there before you click it. So we just want to position everything in center. Here I make a precise width and height that can be customized later on, but we can move it later on with this. Border radius, we want the pointer to be the cursor. And font size, and we want really nice transition of the box shadow that I will show you later on. And this box shadow will be when we open our list. So we want it nicely to transition it. And this box shadow is defined in our variable, which is over here. Moving on, now we have our container, and as I mentioned before, to position everything related to our select, we need to position it relatively if we want list to be positioned absolutely outside of our container. Moving on, we have our list. And again, I want to make it flex. The direction will be column because we want nice list. As I mentioned, position absolutely. Here we have top, which is 100% of our container, plus 5 because I want little space. 12% left, just to make it a little bit on the left direction. The precise width in pixels and the max height. So the height can change accordingly to the number of options that we have on our list. So background, border, radius, padding, everything you know. Here is overlay, that is auto, and another one which is hidden, because the radius will not cause that our inner divs will adjust to this radius. And Z index, because we want to be above everything else. Moving on, here is our option. Another, I want to centralize it, add some paddings, pointer, because it's options. We want to let the user know that they can click it. And the font size is 14, this. And here I place some hover effect, which will change the background to slight gray. Another one is the selected options that we are assigning over here. And what it does, it will change the background to even darker gray. Another one is our tag. We want to place it as well as previous one to center and custom width. So we don't want it to change the size accordingly to the size of the tag. Another one is our label, and this can be more flexible. It will be with 100%. Padding right will adjust it perfectly to from the right side, and we want text align to be center. The color will be a little gray, but also on the select we will make it bold and change a little color. So, and the last thing, our element is the splitter, which will be the width 100% of our list, -10, and because it's -10, so we want to have like 5 on sides, so we place margin left to 5, and it will be 5 on left and right side. To make this component visible outside of our module, first we need to declare it here, and then we are exporting it. Let's put it into our header, and first it's here, up select. So I prepared a list of languages. Here it's just temporarily. I place the selected, and here I want to show the tag as it was in our design. So here I put in the header another splitter. Let me show you how it looks styling over here. So I just placed everything display flex and align item center, which is our header. And another thing, I add a little styling for our splitter, which is the height. The width is 1%, 1 pixels, and the margin here will be from the left and right side, and the color of the splitter. So I think it's time to show you how it looks like in the real application. So let's get back to our design for a moment, and as you can see on the click, I wanted a little shadow, inner shadow inside this element. So now let's compare it to the locally working application. Here is our header, here is our splitter that I mentioned before, and let's try if it's handling. It's handling all the events as it's supposed to, and as you can see, with the transition you have this little inner shadow showing up slowly. And if we click the option, it's changing here as well. So all the select handler is working properly, and if you click outside, our host listener is working properly. To add internationalization to our app, first we need some libraries, and my favorite library for this purpose is ngx translate for Angular, as you can see here. So to add it to our project, we need to npm install it first. We can basically copy it, place it to our terminal, and save it. Last thing what we need to do to import translation from external files, we need to install library loader, which is HTTP loader. So we place npm install and let's add it to our package.json. It's quite fast. Now we can go to configure our module. To configure our translate module, first what we have to do is to create factory, loader factory. So loader factory, it's a factory that actually is creating the new loader, and here we will define about what module will be loading. It's a HTTP client, as you're probably familiar with, to make requests, HTTP requests. Here we define prefix, so where it's supposed to look for our files, and suffix, which is our JSON files. So everything which is included, in my case, in asserts and I18N will be included in our loader. Next, what we have to do is obviously to import our translate module. So we used for root, and here we can configure our translate module. So first I want to set up default language will be English. Second is our loader configuration. So first we have to provide our translate loader, and here is our factory, this function to create our translate HTTP loader. So also we need to define dependencies for our loader, and our dependencies are HTTP client. So that's the basic configuration, and now if you want to use it, you just have to import it to your different module where you want to use it basically, and you have to import just translate module. How to prepare translate file? Let me show you. It's pretty straightforward. You just create JSON file, and the prefix here, it basically doesn't matter as long as you remember what exactly you want to load. So anyway, the structure is basic JSON structure, and it depends from your convention. In my case, I prefer the uppercase letters because it's show me it's a constant value dependently from modules. So I have header module, contact, and so on and so forth. And based on those values, I will inject it into my template. To inject translation from your translate file, there are two ways to do this. First, you can use a translate pipe, which you're basically using in your template, the way as I show you right now. So to get the exact key from your JSON structure, you just use this dot notation. So first, you have first element header, then dot block, and so on and so forth until you reach, in this point, languages or whatever you're looking for. Second option to inject your translation is to use translate service. So you basically inject it into your constructor, and then you can use it asynchronously usually. So anyway, I will show you how this header component structure looks like. First, I will define languages, which is previously created interface select option. It's a list of options. I want to get my value. So there are also two ways to get it. And just because I'm not sure when it will be loaded, my file, so I need to use an asynchronous way, basically. So here I invoking this get method and subscribing to it. So the structure here is the same as in template. And here, subscription, I'm getting the value that I'm looking for. And you might ask why I'm not going to use this instant. And the problem with instant is that you don't know when your file will be loaded. So your translation might not be available for you. That's why the safe way is to use asynchronous way in this case. But because we are sure in this point that it's loaded, so I can use instant inside here. Another is our handler on the language change. So here we'll use, and it's also asynchronous, but the observable, as you can see, it's returning nothing. So you can use it just like it without subscription. And that's the basic fear behind it. Let's verify our code on the locally running application. Let's go to our Chrome browser. And this is the page contact on my website. And here is our select option. So now let's verify if it's going to work. You see we have set up Polish language, and let's change it to English. And as you can see, without any subscription, our handler worked properly. So that's how it looks basically internationalization of your application. Thank you for watching and see you next time.